Hello, today is November 16th, 2016. I'm meeting today with Mr. Robert Alkire at his home west of Pierce, Colorado. My name is Brad Hoops. I'm the interviewer with the Northern Colorado Veterans History Project. Welcome, Bob, and thanks for sitting down this morning to tell us your story.
Good morning, Brad. Nice to have you aboard. My voice is kind of breaking up.
That's
It
okay.
must be due to old age.
Yeah. Well, let's start out. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your date of birth, where you were born, a little bit about your family.
Well, I was born on February the 29th, 1924, 4 miles west of Ault. My folks were farmers and dairymen, and things were pretty rough back in those days until 29 come along, and they really got rough.
Oh, boy.
So the first 10 years I spent was west of Ault, milking cows, and we went broke, but they let us stay there till 1934. 1934, they took possession of the farm. My dad bought the little farm west of Pierce, and we started milking cows again. When we sold out back to move up there, Louis Denner bought our cows, a bunch of little jerseys, $25 a head was the price. And everything was, nobody had any money, didn't make any difference. We were all broke. When I started school in Pierce, I got along good in school in Pierce, didn't do too good in Ault. Anyway, we grew up, then the war broke out in 1941.
Well, let me back up. One question I always like to ask your generation, it kind of talked a little bit about the Depression, how tough that was, coupled with the fact, what was it like in the dirty 30s here? Was that memories of that with the dust and...
Oh yeah, as I say, we moved up here in 1934, and the wind would blow, and there was a fence around the section north of us. Everybody would come out and they'd tear the fence down and use a post for firewood to save fuel. You could hire somebody to work for you for $1 a day or $25 a month was wages, and just barely eke out a living. But everybody was united in their thinking it would get better someday, but we didn't know when. But we'd watch the tumbleweeds. We weren't used to tumbleweeds till we moved up here.
Yeah.
And then here we are 70 years later and the tumbleweeds are still coming. But that's one reason my dad always kind of favored the milk cows, because farming the farm wasn't that good, except grow a little feed. Milk wasn't that good either. Then back in the 30s, milk was hard to find a market for, but all of a sudden the war over in Europe began to kind of get stronger and looked like we might get involved. So they started building the fort up in Cheyenne, and they wanted milk. So my dad and Mr. Road Armor, Mr. Kennedy, started shipping milk to Cheyenne in 1939. And they began to expand a little bit then. That was back in the can days. Bud helped us. Later we had a route, picked up those three with a pickup to go into Cheyenne. And then that grew, and as the war progressed and the demand was bigger and the fort got larger, they needed more milk. So when the war came along, we had an insurance agent that was also head of the draft board, and he knew that we were in the dairy business. Also knew that so they gave me a deferment. Then by 1944, Bud and everybody else had gone to service. I was here by myself. So I told my dad I'd help him get the beets out. He liked to grow sugar beets. I said, when we get the beets out, I'm going to the service. So I went out and joined it. I tried for the Navy, but I was colorblind and they wouldn't take me in the game. So went in the Army, and they said, look like your legs, like you're able to walk. So we'll put you in the infantry.
well, that begs the question. Here's a farm boy from landlocked Colorado. What was the appeal of the Navy for you?
Well, I'd worked, one of the guys that used to work beach with us had been in World War One. He said, you young fellas get involved in this war one day, one thing. Join the Navy. As long as you're alive, you'll have a cot and something to eat. If you get in the Army, you'll be on your own. They may not get food to you and stuff. So don't go to the Army. So where'd I wind up with the infantry?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I often thought how wise he was, but they wouldn't take me in the Navy, I call it.
Oh boy. Where did you go then from, you left here and where'd you go to take your basic training?
Went to Fort Ord. No, we just hovered in there. And you talk about a farm boy. I've never been out all the way from home.
Right, yeah.
Never made a bed. My mother done all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I was green as a gourd. So
What-
they sent us to Camp Walters, Texas for infantry training.
Was that a tough transition for you going from civilian life into military
Oh
life?
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I'd never done nothing.
Yeah.
But anyway, we were in Texas and took training there.
Now, did you get, you said you really had never really traveled too far away from home. Was there any, coupled with getting in the military, was there any problems with, did you have a tinge of homesickness, anything like that? Or?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
but I knew I couldn't do nothing
Yeah,
about it. But
yeah.
yes, it sure was.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I learned pretty fast.
So you finished basic and then take your story from there.
Well, we had 4 days to leave from Texas till we reported to Fort Ord, California, and then we shipped from there right over that. That was in March.
Did that give you enough time to come home, or did you just
4
make it?
days. 4 days.
Did you get home to Colorado, or did you go directly to California?
We got home to Colorado and stopped over on the way there to California.
Was that kind of tough? I mean, when you left, knowing that, boy, now I'm going into harm's way, wondering if I'll even come home again. Yeah.
Yeah, they started paying us combat pay in March of '44. We was getting $21 a month in Texas. We got overseas, so they give us $10 more for combat pay.
Hmm.
And then they said if you go be overseas, you ought to be a PFC. So we got promoted to private first. That's as high as I ever went, as high as I ever cared to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you shipped out from Fort Ord.
Yeah.
That begs the next question. Once again, here's this landlocked farm boy from Colorado going to sea. How was that? Did you get your sea legs on that trip over? Or
I sure did. Started out pretty good, but they had us down to 5 decks. We'd be up on top, got along good, and went to bed that night. And the next morning, got up and said to go to chow, go back up on top. So starting at about the 3rd ring, I was down 5. About the 3rd ring, I get elbowed into them GI cans, started heaving along with everybody else. The vomit got so deep in there that they couldn't wash it out. They finally had to get the Army guys out there, bring them sailors in to wash the floor down.
Oh.
Yeah, it was. But about 3 days, I finally ate an apple. But after that, I got over it. I never got seasick again.
I'll be darned, huh?
But everybody got seasick, it seemed like. It was a mess.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So now going over, were you going over as a replacement, or were you in a unit at that time?
Replacement.
Replacement. And did you know where you were going? Did they tell you?
No.
Oh man, that.
We wound up down in New Guinea for a few days. Then they formed a convoy in New Guinea. Took us 30 days to get over there. But the convoy in New Guinea zigzagged along. And it was out a few days, and they had destroyers on the side of the ship with troop transport. And they thought there was a Jap sub at it. So we got to watch them spin around out there and drop those ash cans, shoot the water in the air. Quite an experience to watch the Navy work. They did a good job. We got up to Manila. The bay was full of sunken ships and debris. We couldn't get in.
Wow.
So we had to go over the side on a rope ladder with your duffel bag on your back. That was a pretty good chore. We got in landing barges, took us to the 5th replacement depot there in Manila. Then they started assigning us to different divisions. That's when they broke us up. I had, in the meantime, made a real good friend who was a fellow by the name of Virgil Bailey from Cokeville, Wyoming. I looked over at it, and this little boy had a black hat, snap button shirts, boots. Oh, that's my kind of guy. So we got acquainted, and we still keep in contact.
Is that right?
He died a couple of years ago,
Ah.
but his boy still calls me all the time. He was a great storyteller. Yeah, he's quite a guy. But anyway, I was assigned to the 37th Infantry Division. So I started out as a BAR man, and I had no training on a BAR. I didn't know a damn thing about it.
That's the big Browning automatic.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. So I carried that a week, and I told the sergeant, I don't know how to fire this thing. I don't know how to maintain. So I got my M1 back. From then on, I had an M1.
So this is at the Philippines had already been invaded, and
Yeah,
okay,
right.
all right.
Yeah. They was fighting Wall City when we got on board. At the 5th Replacement Depot, we could hear them and see the bombs and the artillery. MacArthur didn't like that because he owned a lot of property in Wall City, Manila. Yeah. But it was a great experience.
Well, once again, I keep coming back to this farm boy from Colorado. You know, once again, you had never really traveled too far away from home. Now you're halfway around the world in these exotic locations, New Guinea and Philippines. What was that like for a greenhorn farm boy to see that?
I didn't know those things existed. It
Yeah.
was the Third
Yeah.
World War.
Right.
They old caribou, they worked them, they rode them, they used them for everything, and then finally ate them. And it was an amazing animal. And I didn't know that it existed, any of that stuff.
Yeah.
We ran across people down those hills that had never been away from a camp, you know, and they just lived on rice, and they traveled at night because it was too hot to move during the day. It was all a new world to me.
Yeah. Speaking of, you were talking about hot. How was that once again coming from what I think is a perfect climate here to the humidity and heat? Did that get to you at all, or how?
Yes.
Yeah.
When I first got over there, I passed out several times.
Really? Huh?
Then they started giving us those salt pills. So to go get your water canteen, you'd get salt pills and Atibrine pills. So they said as long as you took your Atibrine, you wouldn't come down with malaria. But I did.
Oh, did you? Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
Yeah.
Does that has that ever flared up since then at all?
When I first got home, I had it several times. I found out if I quit drinking, I didn't have it so much.
Really?
So I quit drinking. I went 9 years without a drink. And I got over the malaria.
I'll be darned. Yeah.
But it was bad. I've had a fever, Holland milk, other people's milk. Say, well, I got Holland fever, and nothing compared to malaria.
Wow.
Malaria, my lips were all blistered in the hospital when the outfit broke up. In the hospital for a long time. That was after the war ended.
Wow. Oh man.
We gathered prisoners for a long time.
Well, take your story. So you get put into the to the 37th. Take your story from there once you're in the unit. Walk us through your story there.
Well, 37th, there were several of them in there, Bud and I've been talking about. There must have been 6 or 7 we could remember. This Virgil Bailey from Wyoming, they sent him to the 32nd. They sent me to the 37th. When I got there, I went to the 129th Infantry Regiment. I was with them quite a while, and then they lost a lot of them 145th. So they transferred some of us over to the 145th. So between those two, I was with the 37th all the time. Yeah.
And how was it? I always heard that the guys that have been there over there for a long time really didn't take to the replacements. They never really want to get close to you, didn't talk to you. Did you find that to be the case, that they kind of ignored the replacements, or?
No, they was pretty damn glad to have us.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So I didn't experience that.
yeah.
Yeah. But they always let us know what all they'd been through, and they had been through a lot. So mine was kind of a Cinderella deal compared to some of those guys.
Wow.
They were pretty bitter.
Wow.
So when I come home, I didn't have any animosity about it, but I'm sure they did and always will have. We found out when the war was over and we started gathering those Japs and had them there in prison camp. There's some of them just like you and me. They was there because they felt that was their duty.
Mm-hmm.
But they'd wash our back when we'd go shower. Or if you left one morning I got up and went to breakfast, realized I left my billfold in my bed when we had cots. Well, so when I got through eating, I went back to my cot, and here come a little Jap. She got me, took me over. He had made my bed and they found my billfold. So I put it in the mosquito net. They rolled them up. So he got my billfold for me. So they were honest little guys.
Yeah.
Uh,
So roughly when did you land in the Philippines in
March of 44.
44?
No, 45.
45?
45.
And were there the whole time were you there in the Philippines the whole time until the war ended?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And primarily mop up and then occupation duty?
Right.
Or, yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And you were talking earlier, you guys had heard about the war ending and what did you think when you first heard about the atomic bomb? Could you understand this thing?
We were elated as hell because we weren't quite as advanced to getting ready as the Bud's outfit was. But we knew sooner or later we were going to Japan. We wasn't looking forward to that.
Yeah, yeah,
That would have taken millions of lives.
yeah,
A lot of them ours.
yeah.
So we were tickled to death when they dropped the bomb.
Oh, I figure that they hadn't. I wouldn't have sat and talked with probably either one of you. Yeah. Could you understand what this thing was? That they talk about this huge bomb?
Nobody could believe that
yeah.
they could do what they claimed it was doing. No, how we didn't believe it. But we were sure elated they did it.
Yeah.
Wasn't looking forward to the invasion.
Yeah. Well, one question always interests me in both your cases is, I look at your situations. You guys are out in the elements, particularly a different climate than here. You probably weren't eating properly. Hygiene wasn't really good. You weren't sleeping very well. That with all that and with the whole umbrella of war on top of you, how do you think you made it through that time period? I mean, any one of those things alone, I think, could knock a man down. With all that combined, how do you think you made it through that period of time?
Well, I think a lot of it was the training, the discipline, and the fact that you had guys right alongside of you. They were making it, so they give you strength to do it. I know when I got malaria, they took me back to the hospital. I had a lot of guys come in there shot up, a lot of wounded guys and stuff. And I felt sorry for them because at least I wasn't shot up. But malaria was pretty rough. There was a lot more when we were on the way back, stopped at Hickam Field. Was there for a while at the base hospital. They were bringing cases in there. We had to go out to Barber's Point to land them B-29s. And they had a lot more people going berserk after the war than they did during the war because they had time to think about it. During the war, you didn't have too much time.
Right.
You had to think about getting your foxhole dug, getting the hell out of the road, and staying alive. You speaking about the four guys, was going up Bellini Pass. Had to hold up there because they had a pretty good setup there. So they sent out a patrol. We went out on patrol about 100 yards or so. Everything seemed peaceful. So they bombed this little village, and the galvanized roofing had all crumbled from the heat. It was on the sidewalk, and it was sticking up. And then there was a bar pit along by the sidewalk. So that made a perfect foxhole. So that's where we spent the night. The next morning, they brought up some hot chow for us. So we got up and lined up for breakfast. The machine gun cut loose on us. It was right where we'd been the night before. They had dug back in a cave there and camouflaged it. So we called for the bazookas. The bazookas come up there and they'd fire into that cave, but it wouldn't detonate because it was all dirt. It hit that soft dirt. So all the tank company, they wasn't too far behind it. So they come up there with a tank with a 105 in it and drove up there, stuck right in that damn machine gun nest and blew four of them guys all to smithereens. They could have left any time during the night. We wouldn't have known. But they stayed there and cut loose with that machine gun.
Wow.
And they just made mincemeat out of it. I thought that, boy, what good soldiers. Hell, it'd been me, I'd have got out of there.
Yeah.
I tried to anyway.
What's it like for someone like myself I never served and obviously was never in combat. What's it like going into combat? Particularly, you're marching into something you don't, you're getting into trouble, into harm's way. What's it like? What are you thinking as you're going into battle, and when you're in the midst of a battle? What's going through a person's mind?
Well, as I say, the guys I was with, those old timers, they'd
Yeah.
been there a long time, so I just kind of followed suit with them. But I remember the first time I went up there, and then I got thinking back later, I should have been smarter, because in training, we worked the rifle range, and you'd be in the pits and then shoot the targets over it. You'd hear them bullets pop by. Well, the first time I was in combat, they was moving us forward, and this popping noise kept cracking and popping. And what the hell is that? Said, they're shooting at you, you dumb ass. Get down. So I Tom, those are bullets that I. Once they went by, you're safe then. But that I remember doing that, and I thought, how stupid could you get and forget that?
Wow. So the war is over, or it's Japan surrenders, and then so you stay on with occupation forces
Right.
there in the Philippines, and you said what, you guarded prisoners more or less, or yeah.
Yeah.
How long then after the surrender? How much longer did you stay in the Philippines then?
Well, I was there and I got malaria, I think probably about October. Then I was in the hospital and finally got out about November. I went back to join the outfit and they weren't there anymore. They had abandoned this Ohio National Guard outfit. So they broke them up and sent them back. So then I was already in the hospital. So they transferred me over to the hospital then. And I was there for 2 or 3 weeks in the hospital. And then I wound up back at 5th Replacement Depot. So then they assigned me back to the medics. So I was with the medics when they shipped us back to Hickam Field, Honolulu. So it took me 34 days to go over, no, 30 days going over. Coming back, it took us 30 days from Manila to Honolulu. We was there about 6 weeks. Then it took 10 days from the Honolulu to San Francisco. They had a luxury liner in the harbor when we first got to Manila, or Honolulu, called the Lura Line. It was a nice luxury line. So finally they said, well, they had room and orders for us to go on home. So we left Manila to go to San Francisco. We was out a couple of days, the Lura Line passed us, going to San Francisco. We kept chugging along. Pretty soon the Lura Line passed us going back to Honolulu. We kept chugging along. Pretty soon the Lura Line passed us again. We were 10 days. And they would just zip there. God, we were sick of that little ship. USS Buchanan, hospital ship.
And what was it like? I always heard everybody that said that as they passed under the Golden Gate Bridge, what a great feeling that was to.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
There wasn't no great band to meet us, so because the war had been over enough, then most of them had come home. But it was a great feeling to see. I remember Hollywood's on the side of the mountain there as you come into the bay. Yeah, Camp Knight, I think, was the camp in California. But we was only there a couple nights, and they shipped us to Utah, got discharged in Utah.
What was it like being back really into civilization, I guess, after being overseas and in rough conditions, now you're back home and...
Well, I wanted to get back home and get back to dairy. I love the milk cows.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah, we had a milk route. It was all in the Cheyenne. So there was a big transition for me because that's what I'd been doing.
Yeah.
It cost me a divorce, but because all the time I was gone, I was planning on things when I got back home. She was planning on when we got home we'd party. She liked to party pretty well.
So you were married when you...
Yeah.
Oh, we need to back up and tell that story then. So you were married the whole time? You were married before you went overseas?
Right.
Oh, boy. Wow.
And that was, I don't blame her, but all the time I was gone, she was waiting so we could enjoy a lot more social life.
How long were you married before you went overseas?
Not very long, maybe 6 months or a year.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Yeah. I was overseas when our daughter was born.
Oh,
And she was a year old before I saw her.
oh, jeez.
So that was the rough.
Yeah,
But that gave me a lot to come home to.
yeah. Well, that also adds another question. You know, in today's world, particularly with kids don't understand. I mean, we've got computers and cell phones where we can talk instantly. Your only choice was letters, correct? And how long would that take to give people an idea? How long would it take to get a letter back?
She was 6 weeks old before I knew she was born.
Oh, jeez.
They sent me a telegram. I never did get it. I got a letter telling me about it. She was born in June of 45. So that helps me keep track of some of the dates. Yeah, and I never saw her. I got home in May, and her birthday was June. She was a year old in June. She was 11 months old when I saw her.
And how was that? I mean, when you first got back, I mean, she probably looked at you as some stranger that showed up in the house.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a yellow man. They didn't know. People would stop me on the. That happened to me when I was at Hickam Field, run into a general, and I had a belt that I'd picked up somewhere along the line, and it was a saber belt. The shining sun just clipped through it. Anyway, I put it on a belt. I was wearing that. So I was in the hospital there at Hickam Field, and this guy stopped me and he said, "Where'd you get that belt?" I told him in Manila. He said, "That's not regulation." He said, "Stop by my quarters and I'll give you a belt to wear, and I'll like to have that belt." And I never did deal with it. He was a brigadier general, 1-star general. I said, "No, sir, I'm going to keep it." Well, he said, "Don't be wearing it then." So I got home, I gave it to my son. He's got it now. Yeah.
So you get back home. You said it eventually led to your divorce as well? Because do you think did your folks or anybody did they see a different Bob come home that had left?
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure they did. I had people stop and ask me why I was so yellow. It was the Atterburn. But that eventually wears off.
And you said you didn't think you had it as bad as some of the old timers that you'd served over there with, but did you ever have any problems with nightmares or flashbacks or anything like that, or were you able to kind of put it behind you when you got home?
Pretty much behind me.
Okay.
I didn't stay in touch with too many guys. Some of the guys I was in the hospital with for a while, but Bailey was the only one I still stay in touch with. They're all dead.
Yeah. Did you guys ever have any sort of division reunions or anything like that?
They did, I think, but I never attended it.
Yeah.
When you're milking cows and running the milk routes, you don't have much time to worry about it.
Yeah, right.
And that was the trouble with my marriage. You know, I'd been away, and I come home and tied myself down to that. And we had a route, had to unload at 5 in the morning, so I had to be in bed and get up ready to go at 3. We did that from 1946 till 1982. So it was a long time. So then I didn't want to get married anymore, but I had a daughter to raise. So then I found a lady that was willing to put up with me. So then I married her. She's the one that's in Loveland. We've been married 68 years.
Oh, jeez. What's her name?
Doris.
Doris. Now you mentioned you had a daughter, and then you mentioned your son. So you, the 2 children, or
we didn't have any children. We adopted a boy in let's see, 45, 55. He's in Branson, Missouri. Has an RV park there. Our daughter took over the dairy from us. My grandson is at the dairy now. He's still running it. But my daughter's spends the winter in Arizona. I'm too bored to go to Arizona, so I'll stay here in Colorado.
Yeah. So 2 children, and how many grandchildren?
8.
8?
8 granddaughters.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, no boys.
Any greats?
Yeah.
Any great grandchildren?
No,
No.
not yet.
Yeah. So then you came home, and that's what you did for a career, was the dairy farm?
That's right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll be darned.
I took the first load of milk and bulk milk in transport in 1954. Took the first load into Wyoming. 2 years later, everything was bulk. They quit the old 10-gallon cans. Bud helped when we had the 10-gallon cans.
Ah.
So they took a lot of hard work out of it and give him a superior product. They've done a lot with milk, with stainless steel tanks, insulation, refrigeration. Everything is huge now. Well, there's a new one going in north of Severns from some California outfit. Beautiful. Just go in there and level the whole farm the way they want it. Put the grades in for their corrals for the cow. It's going to be quite an operation. So it was the cheese plant in Greeley.
Okay.
That's amazing, that plant.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you, out of habit, do you still wake up early in the morning?
Yes.
After
Yeah, we still get up early. Tried to get Bud to come to breakfast this morning. He's not too damned early.
Well, is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about, or any of the stories that floated to the top? And Bud, jump in if there's anything you can think that he left out, so that ideally we round out your story as best we can. Or do you think, by and large, we captured everything?
Well, we kind of hit the highlights of it. I think there isn't too many highlights about it. But I experienced things I never dreamt existed. And I saw things happen that you can't talk about, people wouldn't believe.
Yeah, right.
But basically it all worked out pretty good. When we was going up the valley, we'd have little kids that would come to get the garbage when we clean our mess kit, and to see how they survived. It's then you come back here and hear people want to strike for higher wages or something. It's pretty hard to take when you see how those people live and appreciate things. Yeah. But Manila is quite a city, I understand. Now, I've never wanted to go back. Have you ever wanted to go back, Bud? I haven't. No, there's some beautiful spots on Luzon, just as pretty as Honolulu.
Really?
Yeah, there really is. But they're sure a third world country. But the Japanese had a side too, not a side to do what they did, but they were there just because of the reason we were there. They believed in their country. They were good soldiers.
So you never held any animosity towards the Japanese?
No.
No.
A lot of good friends around Ault, and they went through a lot here at home because they put them in concentration
Oh,
camps.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Good farmers, good workers, good honest people.
Yeah. Well, the last question I always like to ask in these interviews, as you look back in your time in the Army, and particularly your time overseas, how did that change your life, affect your life, play a role in your life, or was it just simply a chapter in your life that you went through? How would you answer that question?
Well, it was rough at the time for me to do it because it's such a change. But it's an experience I wouldn't take anything for. If I had to do it all over, I'd do it again.
I'll be darned.
Yeah. It was an education for sure.
Yeah.
And it opened the doors. Later, then I served on a lot of boards, water boards, ditch boards, bank boards, school boards. And then he gets old, nobody wants to. He don't know nothing anyway. But it's been good. No, I've had a good life. I have no regrets.
Oh, wonderful.
My brother-in-law, I just lost my sister. That's her behind. They're out in California. He was a major in the Marine Corps. He went through a lot more than I did, and he was ahead of me. I was one of the incentives to join and do my share. And they was married 73 years. She just passed away here about a month ago. And she was 94.
Wow.
He's just talked to him yesterday. He's doing fine. He's got 2 grandsons that are lieutenant colonels, and one of them's the Army, one of them's the Marine Corps.
Wow.
So they've done pretty good.
Yeah.
It took an act of Congress for me to make PFCs, so it must danger being a major. But the service is something I sometimes think everybody should serve a little bit of the time in the service.
Yeah.
Teach you discipline, teaches you respect, shows you things that you didn't know. It's so advanced now, I'd be totally lost, even the infantry.
Yeah.
Yeah, the new weapons and stuff, amazing. Yeah.
Well, Bob, I want to thank you for sitting down to tell your story today, but more importantly, I want to thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you, I appreciate it very much. Good morning. This is a picture of my dad and I, the morning I got ready to leave on a 4-day delay en route, they called it. I'm going from Camp Walters, Texas to Fort Ord, California to be shipped overseas. I'm getting ready to go catch a train. This is my dad on our dairy farm in 1945. Thank you much.